Welcome to Bible Reader Companion. Our Bible reading this week is Acts chapters 10 through 19. Our memory verse this week is Acts chapter 10 and verse 34, which in the New King James reads, "Then Peter opened his mouth and said, 'In truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality.'" And we've been looking this week at the fact that means that God is not a respecter of persons when it comes to salvation. In this specific context, Peter was referring to the fact that God had accepted Gentiles unto salvation, whereas previously the gospel had only been preached to the Jews. We began looking at four miraculous events which took place, which led Peter to understand this statement and to draw this conclusion. Really forced him to draw this conclusion, gave him really no choice but to come to this conclusion. The first we looked at yesterday, and that was the fact that an angel appeared to Cornelius, a man who was upright, who was devout, who was seeking after God, and an angel came to him and said, "Look, here's what you need to do. You need to go and send for Peter." And Cornelius did that. And while those men were on the way, something was happening to Peter. And we're going to look at two of those events today in this chain of events. I want to begin in Acts chapter 10 and verse 9. Acts 10 and verse 9, again reading from the New King James Version. "The next day as they went on their journey and drew near the city, Peter went up on the housetop to pray about the 6th hour. Then he became very hungry and wanted to eat. But while they made ready, he fell into a trance, and saw heaven opened and an object like a great sheet bound at the four corners, descending to him and let down to the earth. In it were all kinds of four-footed animals of the earth, wild beasts, creeping things, and birds of the air. And a voice came to him, 'Rise, Peter, kill and eat.' But Peter said, 'Not so, Lord, for I have never eaten anything common or unclean.' And a voice spoke to him again the second time, 'What God has cleansed, you must not call common.' This was done 3 times, and the object was taken up into heaven again. Now while Peter wondered within himself what this vision which he had seen meant, behold, the men who had been sent from Cornelius had made inquiry for Simon's house, and stood before the gate. They called and asked whether Simon, whose surname was Peter, was lodging there. While Peter thought about the vision, the Spirit said to him, 'Behold, 3 men are seeking you. Arise therefore, go down and go with them, doubting nothing, for I have sent them.'" So the first miracle that occurred is an angel coming and telling Cornelius to seek for Peter. While Peter is being sought out, Peter has a vision of all kinds of things that Jews were not allowed to eat. This sheet comes down out of heaven, and he hears a voice to rise and kill and eat. And Peter's like, "No, I can't do that because I understand the law and I don't eat things that are unclean." Then a voice came again and said, "What I have cleansed, you don't call common." And so there's this vision telling Peter that things that he thinks of as unclean or common are no longer the case, and that God has cleansed those things. And then you have these men coming from Cornelius and calling for him. And while Peter is trying to digest all of this and think about all of this, the Holy Spirit says, "Look, there's some men, they've come for you, and I want you to go with them without asking." So Peter, in the midst of thinking about this vision of unclean things that God says he has cleansed, is invited by Gentiles who Jews would have nothing to do with to come to their house, and the Spirit says, "Go." And you know what he did? He went. And there's one more miraculous event that we're going to read about tomorrow that happened that led Peter to make this statement in our memory verse, where it says in Acts chapter 10 and verse 34, "Then Peter opened his mouth and said, 'In truth, I perceive that God shows no partiality.'" Thank you for thinking on these things, and we hope you will join us again tomorrow.
Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook for more content like this.